Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. 8 gigs of RAM, is it useful? Apparently not anymore. You know, I watch a lot of videos like many on YouTube as well. Whether it's for Mac or Windows, doesn't matter, okay? I get sick to the stomach every time one of these tech channels says, 8 gigs of RAM is fine, you're okay with 8 gigs. Well, no, because Windows 11 wants 8 gigs to itself, okay? Like, seriously, that's all your RAM if all you got's 8 gigs. And on a Mac with 8 gigs, well, that's pathetic too, because 4.5 of it's gone to the operating system. And that's running the newest version of Ventura, okay? But at least it leaves you a little bit of RAM to run some small programs without hitting swap yet. But you're 100% into swap if all you got is 8 gigs of RAM on a Windows 11 computer. So you're already destroying your SSD drive with that swap. And swap is harder on an SSD drive, I think, than the total terabyte written data, because it's gonna definitely chew it up faster, you know, because swap is just like, you know, like a really super, like, massively fast machine gun. Think of the fastest machine gun in the world and, you know, quadruple it or more, okay? I mean, it is going to destroy your SSD drive in no time, okay? So 8 gigabytes of RAM is a joke on both platforms, okay? It really honestly is. I've even seen computers from Apple, people buy according to the tech channel saying, 8 by 256 you're fine, and 8 gigs is plenty. The 256, okay, so it's a little bit small, you know, but you can go externally and do all your editing on an external drive and not worry about wearing out your internal, you know. But the bigger the drive, they actually admit at least, that the bigger the drive space that you have available, the longer the lifespan of that drive is going to be, because it can handle more terabytes of written data, the bigger it is. Well, that's great, you know, it's very encouraging. But at the same time, SSD will be used as swap. Yeah, that's going to destroy your drive really fast. So you want to try and avoid swap as much as you possibly can. Now, if all you are is a basic user, and when I mean basic, I'm talking you're surfing the net, you're watching YouTube, you're streaming Netflix, you're writing a book or a biography or typing a letter. God forbid we all don't do that anymore unless it's email, but some people are still old school that way. They'll print it out and put it in the mailbox. You know, and you're maybe listening to music. Well, as long as you're only running 1 or 2 programs at a time, they're still trying to tell you that 8 gigs is fine, when it really honestly isn't, when your OS is chewing 8 gigs. Okay, and when you fire up a browser, oh, there you go, man. Whether it's, you know, Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome, I mean, they're all hogs, you know. I mean, I've tested Chrome against Safari on the Mac, because they say, well, Safari is faster and it uses less RAM. Well, not by much, okay? It's a minuscule amount, so don't be fooled into that garbage either, okay? They're both equally as bad pretty well. And Edge is also a bit of a RAM sucker too. But we're sitting just at the desktop right now on my Windows 11 gaming system, which has 32 gigabytes of RAM in it. And I'm going to zoom in for you as best as I can here so you can actually see, hopefully. And, yeah, about there. Okay, now, if you see where my little mouse cursor is here, right there. Hello! Okay, 8 gigs of RAM is in use out of the 32 gigs. I'm using 25.2% of my RAM in my computer. So is 8 gigs suitable? No, because if all you got is 8 gigs of RAM, well, you're kind of toast. You have just enough to get Windows running. And I'm not even using the onboard graphics anymore, okay? I'm using my NVIDIA card. I actually found out how to turn off the built-in graphics, because there's basically 2 video buses in this thing. The onboard actually will utilize up to 16 gigs or more if it needs it, okay, because it's only going to use what it needs to do stuff, okay, but it can utilize currently up to 16 gigs of RAM for running stuff. So unless the program wants the NVIDIA card, it's not going to go after it, right? So I found out how to actually turn that off so that it is just the NVIDIA card now, and that is it. Now, even with having it turned on just to get to the desktop, I'm still at 8 gigs of RAM. It doesn't affect it because it doesn't take that much video RAM to get to the desktop on a Windows computer. Anyways, so I'm still within the 8 gigs. But now I'm running 100% NVIDIA graphics card only. I've completely disabled the onboard, so it has no effect over anything. But even my NVIDIA card, after I use up the 4 gigs that are there for me for gaming or whatever, or video editing, it can also utilize the extra 16 gigs, giving me like 16 and 4 is what? 20 gigabytes or more worth of video RAM, right? Total, right? I think it's actually a little more than 16 gigs. But, you know, you saw for yourself, that's 8 gigs to get us just to the desktop. I have no browsers running, nothing. Just whatever loads up on your desktop, okay? So, 8 gigs is a joke. It's a joke on a PC, it's a joke on a Mac, okay? Now, my internal storage is now at 1 terabyte, okay, on my PC here, mainly because I upgraded to a PCI Express 4, 7,000 megabit per second drive, which became an advantage to me because my computer for video editing, doing the same size file, same resolution, was about 4 minutes behind my Mac Mini, which only has 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, I don't even want to get into the processors or any of that other stuff, but either way, I am now only 12 seconds behind. Now that is before I figured out how to turn off that internal video and go straight to my video card only, which is an NVIDIA 3050. So I still have to do another test yet and see if I'm now on par or if I'm slightly quicker. But you know what? Here's the thing. I want you to really understand this very, very closely. All the speed in the world is not going to give you a better output product. Okay? If you are very much concerned with the output quality of your end product, whether it's a video or something with photography or anything in the graphic arts and design spectrum, and music as well, you don't do this stuff on a PC, okay? You do it on a Mac, right? Now, it is true that software does control hardware, but only to a certain point, okay? Apple has always been an industry standard in those areas, okay? That's not due to change anytime soon, okay? PCs have gotten much better. Yes, I will definitely give them kudos. They are better at video editing than they used to be, okay? And I'm not talking about speed, I'm talking about quality, okay? The screens are getting much better for PCs, whether it's an onboard laptop screen or whether it's an external screen like this 32-inch. This is a 2K display native, but it can do 4K as well, right? Now, it does native 2K at 165 hertz, providing you can have that kind of hertz coming out of your HDMI port, okay? Out of a display port, now out of the HDMI I can also go 4K, but it knocks me back to 60 hertz at 4K. The picture needs some tweaking and adjusting to give me the same, or hopefully the same kind of feel and look as my dedicated 4K only 60 hertz display I recently bought for my Mac. This one here can do the 4K and it does it very well, and gaming is fantastic at 4K. I love it, okay? At 2K it's still fantastic, right? Now, I know gamers, they mostly use 1080p and they're very great resolution at 1080p. The screens are getting really super nice for gaming at 1080. However, you can only put up with a 17-inch screen in my case for so long, and it's kind of like my eyes go buggy, so I like a bigger screen. But regardless of that, I can go 2K or 4K, it makes no difference. My computer can handle it. And I did run my 4K native display on this at 4K, obviously, and I could downscale it to 2K or lower if I wanted to, even 1080p, and still a very nice picture, okay, either way. But even this screen still looks far superior graphically out the back of my Mac than it does out of the PC. Software does control hardware, okay? Same as the coloration capabilities, what you visually see for a true red or a true blue. It's going to be more truer on the Mac than it is going to be on the PC. So I mean, if you are using your computer for that video editing, desktop publishing, graphic arts design, and music as well, that is still going to be your best solution, is to go to a Mac. But even at that, you still need RAM, you still need, you know, large drives, preferably internal. Okay, to start going to external fast drives, or faster than the internal Mac drives, you're going to spend a boatcan load of money, okay, to do that. But even to get a PC spec'd up to do decent video editing, and of course you're definitely going to be able to play games on a gamer class system, and you're going to need a gamer class system either way on a PC if you want to do video editing really well, and that's going to cost you. My laptop set me back but a little over $2,000, okay, and then I had to get a 3-year warranty for it because it's on financing and I want to keep it warranted while I have the payments. But it only came with 16 gigabytes of RAM. It came with a half a terabyte of storage, which was not the fastest kit on the block compared to what I have in there now for a half a terabyte. But then I took that half a terabyte and I moved it to the PCI Express 3 dedicated slot, and then I have a dual slot which is 4 and 3. So I bought the PCI Express 4 drive by Kingston that's 7,000 megabits per second, and holy cow, what a difference in speed. You know, like smoother gameplay, a little extra FPS out of there as well. That really helped. But even for the video editing aspect of things, even though I'm not going to get the same quality, output quality on my PC as I do on the Mac, the speed went from like virtually almost 4 minutes behind the Mac Mini M1 to now about 12 seconds slower. That was a drastic improvement just by going to the drive. So it'll be interesting to see how much better and faster it's going to be with being just on the dedicated NVIDIA graphics card for doing video editing. I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to work out. So we'll have to do some testing on that for you guys as well as for myself, and see how much time we can shave. But or if we did. But at least I found out how to completely shut off that internal so that I have just the NVIDIA graphics with its own graphics memory. Anyways, so 8 gigs of RAM is definitely a joke, okay? You need at least 16 even for basic uses now on Windows 11. That's a given. Yes, we know that it can run on 4 gigs of RAM, but you're still 100% into virtual memory at that point, right? And your performance takes a really big hit that way. At only having 8 gigs of RAM, the performance hit is not as bad, nor is it very noticeable, okay? But it's still there and it's still destroying your SSD drive, okay? And your computer's going to be running hot because of that, okay? And heat does kill components, period. We know this. That's why we need to keep our computers as cool as we can, okay? Anyways, it's longevity, right? It's not just about terabytes of written data, it's about keeping things running as cool as possible. So I've got a 5-fan cooling plate underneath my laptop that blows cool air into the laptop, okay? Plus it has its own 2 fans as well. Either way, I don't have to worry about that on my Mac. My fan never goes past idle speed, and my temperatures never get past like 33 degrees tops, even doing video editing. So, mind you, Macs do suck for gaming nowadays. Apple Silicon processors are absolute garbage for gaming. I would not recommend even a $5,000 or $8,000 Macintosh system kitted up to the nines and still say, oh, that'd be great for gaming. No, why don't you just spend like, you know, about $2,700 like I did on my PC altogether, and you'll have a 32-inch screen, 32 gigs of RAM, you'll have some super fast drives in there, and a really kick-butt computer for playing a lot of your hardcore games. Now, this thing is not a hardcore gaming laptop. I mean, it's going to play a lot of AAA games, yes, but there are some that it will not do very well in for FPS because of the lack of the video. So yeah, if you're a hardcore gamer, yeah, I can see you spending $8, $10, $12,000 on a gaming system, and it won't be a laptop, it'll be a desktop in order to play games properly. But that's kind of the way we do things. It's our choices we make in life. However, basic users, like I said, 8 gigs is not enough. It's right there on screen, man. 8 gigs is gone, you know, just to the OS. So when you're looking at buying a new computer right now, even as a basic user that has absolutely no intentions of going near anything graphically or sound wise, that sort of thing, you're still going to need 16 gigs of RAM at least to be functional. And how long that's going to last, I don't know. Maybe another 2 years, the rate Windows is going. Windows is chewing up almost double the RAM of the Mac OS, and yet it's a so much more inferior operating system in so many ways, right? But the only advantage that PCs have over Mac right now is the fact that PCs are great for gaming. Okay, they've always been really great for gaming, and Mac used to be great for doing its normal stuff plus for gaming at one point with Intel chips, but now all that got taken away from us, so we can't run boot camp with Windows anymore, which was a fantastic way to have a real Mac and a real PC at the same time, and you just chose which operating system you wanted to launch into. Things don't work that way anymore with Apple Silicon chips, unfortunately. I really would like to see it come back for boot camp with Windows, but I'm not holding my breath, neither should you, because I don't think it's going to happen in reality. But I think that eventually Macs will become better and better gaming machines, but by the time they do, it's probably going to set us back about 10 grand just for a basic Mac at that point that can do decent gaming. You know, it's kind of getting ridiculous, honestly, it really is. You know, I got it why Apple wanted to go to their own processors and stuff, but they really screwed them up when it came to the gaming side. We lost out on gaming companies. You know, Microsoft bought out Activision Blizzard. They went a major supporter for Apple alone for games. You know, that they support us for years. And we never really even needed the same kind of equipment, horsepower-wise, as the PC needed. You know, we could have a minimum recommended spec kind of deal, right? And we could have the minimum spec and play recommended without even thinking twice about it. Where a PC, you had to actually have the recommended to play it recommended properly just to kind of keep up to the Mac, you know what I mean? Or keep up to it to make it even. So the Mac always did the gaming even better in a lot of ways. But some games, yeah, I mean, obviously there were quite a number of titles that just still always did suck on the Mac, but, you know, if you had a Mac Pro Tower that you spent 80 grand into, well, hey, then away you go. Who's got that kind of money, though? It's a stupid thing, really, to be honest, in a lot of areas. It's just dumb, but whatever. It is what it is. But at least you know, get a little bit more information on what's going on in the world here. So if you buy a Mac, minimum of 16 gigs, you're good for about another 2-3 years there. That you can still do a lot of really good video editing, even at 16 gigs. Just don't run DaVinci or Final Cut. Stick with iMovie. If all you got is 16 gigs of RAM in your Mac. That's would be my recommendation. Yes, you could do it with DaVinci, you could do it with Final Cut even with 16 gigs, but those programs, when you start using them, they do start to chew up and you do end up in swap. You know, so that's one thing to consider there. I've been doing a lot of background studying on what's going on with video editing software and stuff lately, and I'm kind of thinking, well, if I want to advance my channel more as far as doing more complex video editing and stuff and doing like just more, you know, funky stuff, whatever you want to call it, then I'm definitely going to have to upgrade my computer. It's not going to be a choice, you know, and that'll be coming soon that I would have to do that. And that's not going to happen because I don't have the money. So I'm going to have to stick with what I have for now, and as long as it keeps working for me, okay. PC-wise, I've got way more specs, if you want to call it, but I don't have the same quality range capabilities in the PC. So it's kind of one of those things. I visually look at things, you know, and I've had the same computer running the same display like this, Mac and PC same time, flipping between them. And I've done it with the 4K dedicated only display I have at 60 Hertz, which is freaking nice. And either way, the Mac is still the more appealing picture, more just everything better, right? And I also look at what Windows gives us for programs versus Apple. Windows doesn't even give us a video editor anymore except for a cloud-based one. I don't want my stuff on the cloud. Sorry, I don't trust the cloud as far as I can throw it. I don't even like it for Apple. You know, when it comes to video editors though, we do get iMovie in the Mac, and it's a very good and very powerful video editor that is free. Okay, if you own a Mac, even if you bought it 15th hand, that software is yours and it's free. GarageBand, another program, very great for audio. It actually was the industry standard years back up until Logic, and now we have many other programs too that do a fantastic job too. And we do have a lot of the same audio software on both Mac and PC, but the Apple still does it better. Okay, either way, it's just kind of a no-brainer there. Even running the same programs, there's something about software, and it does control the hardware, and the hardware is not the same snuff capabilities as the Mac. So it's kind of that sort of, it's always been a constant battle. I think it always will be. To be honest, I don't think the battle will ever stop. But we get GarageBand regardless. You don't even have to know how to play an instrument. You can make your own music up and sell your music. I mean, you know, because it's all royalty-free stuff anyways that's built into GarageBand. And Logic is the same way. It's all royalty-free stuff, but you pay for Logic because it's a professional industry standard program. So you're going to pay for it, but it's also far cheaper than a lot of the other programs out there that cost thousands of dollars, or that are also on subscription renewal things every year. Once you buy Logic, you own it. That's it. And it'll keep getting updated and updated and updated until your Mac OS runs out of updates. Then you'll have to get the newest version that way. But, you know, and you may have to pay for it a second time. I don't know. If you go to like the newest Mac running the newest version of Logic, I'm not sure if you have to pay for it a second time, but I know that while you have the lifespan of your Mac, once you've paid for Logic once, all the updates are free. Your OSs are always free updates, but you can only update a Mac computer so far before they make a new Mac that has to run just this particular operating system, and that's it. You know, kind of thing. Kind of like the way M1 technology is going with Intel apps, right? Like Intel Mac apps. They're cutting off Rosetta 2 in 2026. They've already cut off Rosetta this year, or they're about to this year, for the Intel Macs. So if you had to use Rosetta before, which you likely did on an Intel Mac, well, that Rosetta app will no longer work, or whatever it is, will no longer work once you reload your system again, fresh and clean, okay? So whenever that cutoff does happen this year, you won't get Rosetta to reinstall. And with the M technology processors, they cut off Rosetta 2 in 2026 from what I heard. Once that is completely gone, the next time you reload your Mac, you will not get Rosetta back into your computer again. Okay, so that's kind of another thing, right? Which means all your Intel apps that use Rosetta now that you use on your M1 or M2, they won't even function once that happens. So yeah, it's kind of the way things are progressing though. I do have respect for Windows though, that I've got Windows 7 games on this bloody thing that still run on Windows 11. So I gotta give Microsoft some kudos there. I mean, they're not all bad, you know. There are some nice things about Windows, and I think I should do a video on my favorite parts of Windows and then my favorites of the Mac OS. I think I'll do those videos separately, of course, and go over what all I like and don't like about each platform, because yeah, I do love the Mac, but there are some sucky parts to it, obviously. But anyway, hopefully this has helped you guys out more. So buy a machine, even if you're the basic user there is on the planet that exists. Whatever laptop or desktop you buy, nothing less than 16 gigs, nothing less than a half a terabyte. That's kind of where you're sitting at now. And just keep in mind that 16 gigs, even on your Windows environment, is only going to be good for probably about another, I'm thinking about 2 years. before you're going to have to at least upgrade the RAM again. So make sure that you buy a computer that you can go to more than 16 gigabytes of RAM. And if you can already do 32, well, then you should be good for the next 5 or 6 years with 32 gigs of RAM, depending on what you're doing though. But you don't need 32 gigs of RAM if you're a base user, but you definitely need 16. So your next upgrade, I would say 16 to maybe 24 gigs, and then after that just buy a whole new computer at that point. But if you are more than a basic user, and maybe you don't like the Mac OS and you want to still do video editing and stuff, okay, yeah, you can still do it. Just don't expect the same quality output performance for the main quality of the product, but you can still do it. But you're going to need at least 32 gigs to get started seriously with a Windows computer, because 8's already gone just to launch the darn thing to the desktop. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys today, so hopefully it helps, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.